He is the great Dark Lord of Mordor, the architect of the Rings of Power, the fall of Númenor, and countless instances of death and destruction are the result of his influence. Yet this dark malice was not immune to one of the most human of emotions, an emotion that would directly lead to his own destruction. Today on Nerd of the Rings, we cover Sauron's fear of Aragorn. Ironically, Sauron and Morgoth, beings who we so often associate with inspiring such dread, were among the most fearful of beings themselves. For Sauron, we see him fear the destruction of his physical form when he is at the mercy of Huan the Hound, and subsequently, he fears the repercussions of this loss when he would return to his master. Later, he would fear the judgment of the Valar after Morgoth's defeat, leading him to flee and continue his evil ways in the far east of Middle-earth. But perhaps the most persistent and costliest fear Sauron would ever have is for the men of Númenor. To fully understand this fear, climactically embodied in the character of Aragorn, we must go back to the Second Age of Middle-earth. Sauron has successfully fooled the elves of Eregion into creating the Rings of Power, and after creating his one, the Ruling Ring, he begins his great war upon the elves of Eriador in 1693. He destroys Eregion, kills Celebrimbor, reclaims 16 rings, and lays waste to the entire region. Elrond is under siege at the newly founded Rivendell. Gil-galad is holding out in Lindon near the river Lune, and the dwarves of Khazad-dûm have retreated to their mountain halls. In short, Sauron now controls and releases wanton destruction upon the entire region. Devastation that would not be seen in this area for thousands of years. It is in this moment, when the elves' situation is most dire, that their allies of old would arrive, a great fleet of Númenor. These mighty men would turn the tide, driving Sauron back from the Lune, before dealing him a decisive defeat in the Battle of the Gwathlo in 1701. Having been preoccupied with his attempted corruption and destruction of the elves, Sauron is blindsided by the might of Númenor, and after forcing the Dark Lord to flee in disgrace with just a small bodyguard of soldiers, the Númenorians earn Sauron's hatred. This hatred would fester over the coming centuries, as Sauron continues his conquest in the south and east near his lands of Mordor. In defiance of the men of Númenor, he would proclaim himself King of Men and Lord of the Earth. By the year 3261, over 1500 years after their victory over Sauron, we find a Númenor well on their path to evil, and their king, Ar-Pharazôn, is enraged by Sauron's claims. Leading this great fleet, Pharazôn lands at the haven of Umbar, and so great was the splendor of their force that Sauron's armies flee before them, abandoning the Dark Lord, and his hatred of Númenor would grow. Sauron takes on his fair visage, humbling himself before Pharazôn. He is taken captive by the king, and over the coming 57 years, he would orchestrate his vengeance, leading to the destruction of the entire island of Númenor. Yet Sauron would be far from rid of this hated enemy. Indeed, their greatest deeds against him were yet to come, for Elendil and his sons Isildur and Anarion led survivors of the faithful, those Númenorians who remained loyal to the Valar and Eldar, to the lands of Middle-earth, where they established the kingdoms of Gondor and Arnor. Returning to Mordor and regaining his physical form, Sauron would continue to go after the Númenorians, attacking Gondor in 3429. This leads to the creation of the last alliance of elves and men, which takes the fight to Mordor, culminating in a direct conflict where Elendil and Gil-galad fight Sauron. While Sauron would kill both great kings, they would also throw down the Dark Lord himself. And in this moment, Isildur would take the hilt shard of Narsil and cut the ring from Sauron's hand. Once again, Númenor had thwarted him. And now, at the hands of Elendil and Isildur, Sauron is left in the weakest state he has ever been. He would be reduced to a spirit of malice for 1,000 years before he can once again take a physical form. Plenty of time to dwell upon the defeats he has suffered, all because of these mortal men who stood against him. Over the coming centuries, Sauron would seek the destruction of these men more than any other race of Middle-earth. We see him or his servants attempting to destroy not only the realms of Gondor and Arnor, but also to snuff out the royal line of Elendil. While this could be seen as mere vengeance for past defeats, there is little question that Sauron long harbored a fear for what the men of Númenor could achieve against him. In the south, the Witch King would succeed in destroying the line of Anarion, while the realm of Gondor would persevere. In the north, he would orchestrate the utter ruin of Arnor, while the line of Isildur would live on in secret, aiding the north as the Dunedain Rangers. And it's with all this history between Sauron and Númenor that we find the significance of Aragorn, when, to Sauron's dismay, he reveals himself on March 6, 3019. While Sauron no doubt had rumors and perhaps fears of the line of Elendil surviving, this moment is a direct confrontation and a culmination of all that had come before. Aragorn's revealing himself in the Palantir of Orthanc confirms to Sauron that the line of Elendil, who threw him down, and the line of Isildur, who took the ring, is alive and well. As Aragorn recounts, "To know that I lived and walked the earth was a blow to his heart, I deem, for he knew it not till now. The eyes in Orthanc did not see through the armor of Theoden, but Sauron has not forgotten Isildur and the sword of Elendil. Now in the very hour of his great designs the heir of Isildur and the sword are revealed, for I showed the blade reforged to him. He is not so mighty yet that he is above fear. Nay, doubt ever gnaws him." Indeed, doubt and fear would gnaw at Sauron, in part because of what had come before Aragorn's reveal. For when Pippin looked into the Palantir, that same Palantir Saruman had used to communicate with Sauron, the Dark Lord would assume that Saruman had found the halfling carrying the One Ring. When Aragorn uses this very same Palantir to reveal himself, the natural conclusion for Sauron is that the heir of Elendil has defeated Saruman and likely acquired the ring himself. As Aragorn points out, at the very hour of his great designs, the Dark Lord sees the return of Isildur's line, the return of the blade of Elendil. And this man, who succeeds in wresting control of the Palantir from him, likely now has his ring of power. Why would Sauron fear this? Well, I think I'll do a full-on theory video on this topic. But in short, I think Boromir's words to Frodo gives us a hint of what Aragorn could do. "The ring would give me power of command, how I would drive the hosts of Mordor, and all men would flock to my banner." Across the board, Sauron sees a great threat, one that has thwarted him throughout the centuries. So he sends forth his message to Minas Morgul. The attack upon Minas Tirith is to begin. As we know, in this battle, Sauron would not only suffer a crushing defeat, but he would lose his chief lieutenant, the Witch King. So not only has the heir of Elendil returned, with Elendil's blade, and seemingly now possessing his ring, but that heir has won a great military victory over Sauron, and dispatched his greatest servant. All this culminates in Aragorn's decision to march upon the Black Gate of Mordor. The greatest threat Sauron has encountered in over 3,000 years is marching upon the very place the last alliance once did. which resulted in the loss of his body and his great ring. As Gandalf would state, "We must march out to meet him at once. We must make ourselves the bait, though his jaws should close on us. He will take that bait, in hope and in greed, for he will think that in such rashness he sees the pride of the new Ring Lord. And he will say, 'So, he pushes out his neck too soon and too far. Let him come on, and behold, I will have him in a trap from which he cannot escape. There, I will crush him, and what he has taken in his insolence shall be mine again forever.'" And it is in this act of heroism, where Aragorn is not a prideful ring lord, but a sacrificial lamb, that Sauron's fear finally proves his undoing. His rashness to attack Gondor is nothing compared to his rashness to attack its king. And as a result, Frodo and Sam are able to make their way to Mount Doom, where the ring is destroyed. And unlike Gandalf, who, as we saw in last week's video, was one who was aware of his fear and overcame it, Sauron, one of the most scary and scared beings in all Middle-earth, is undone by the heir of Númenor. But even more so, Sauron is undone by his fear of him. As always, I want to say a huge thank you to all my Patreon and YouTube supporters who make this channel possible. Tom DeBombadil 19, Lissamy the Cinda, Rabbi Rob Thomas, Charles Leisure, CCDC Red Team, Joe Tepper, The Mighty Mim, Andrew Carlisle, Swirled Traveler, Matthew Jeffrey, Viking Lord, Alvin Einbert, Jeremy Daniel Derby, Madame Director, Freya Firestar, Chris and Meg Q, Leo Vittori, Sky Carcass, Slide Belts, Dane Ragnarsson, Berto Berg, Graham Derricott, The Dark-Haired One, Wyland, Z and N, Evely, Kia, Micah Wu, and Debbie. If you enjoyed the artwork in this video, check out the artists in the description to purchase prints of their great work for yourself. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Nerd of the Rings.